I wake up at 4:30 in the morning now. That's just how it is. My body decided for me somewhere around the second year of the divorce. You don't need an alarm clock when your chest feels like someone is sitting on it before the sun even thinks about coming up. I pour the coffee into the same mug I have used for 11 years. It says, "World's Greatest Grandpa." My daughter gave it to me for Christmas, back when she still gave me things. The mug has a small chip on the rim. I don't throw it away. I don't know why. I sit in the recliner and I stare at the wall. The recliner used to be in the den of the house I built with my own hands. Now it's in the one-bedroom apartment that smells like the previous tenant's cooking no matter how many times I spray that lavender stuff. The windows face a parking lot. My truck is the only one out there at this hour. It's a 2014 Ford F-150. The paint is fading on the hood. I don't wash it anymore. The phone is on the side table. It's always on the side table. It never rings. Not really. Sometimes I get a text from my sister in Florida asking if I'm still breathing. Sometimes I get a political meme from a guy I used to work with at the mill. But the phone never lights up with the names that would actually mean something. My name is Tom. I am 68 years old. I have 2 children. A daughter named Megan, who is 41. A son named Kyle, who is 38. I have 4 grandchildren. Or I did. I don't really know anymore.
You lose count when they stop calling you Grandpa. I need to tell you what happened to me. Not because I want your pity. I don't. Pity is for people who still believe something can be fixed. I'm telling you because I wish someone had told me. I wish some old man had grabbed me by the shoulder 20 years ago and said, "Tom, they are not yours. Not really. They are just passing through you on their way to somewhere else." You wouldn't have believed him either. That's the thing. You can't hear the warning because the love is too loud. I was a pipe fitter for 37 years. Union job, good money. Hard on the knees and the back, but I never complained because it put food on the table and braces on my kids' teeth, and a down payment on a 3-bedroom ranch in a neighborhood where the yards looked like pudding greens. My wife Carol stayed home with the kids until Kyle started 1st grade. Then she worked part-time at a real estate office. Nothing fancy, just answering phones and filing paperwork. We were normal. That's what kills me the most. We were so painfully boring and normal. We had arguments about what to watch on TV. We had fights about money at the end of every month. We had sex on Saturday mornings when the kids were at soccer practice. We went to the Olive Garden for anniversaries and ordered the same things every time. I got the chicken parm, she got the shrimp scampi. We held hands across the breadstick basket. I thought that was the whole deal. You work, you love.
You die. Someone cries at your funeral, and then they eat cold cuts and move on with their lives. I was wrong about every single thing. Let me tell you about my daughter Megan. She was born in August, the hottest day of the year. The air conditioner broke in the delivery room, and Carol was screaming at me to find someone to fix it, and the nurses were running around like chickens, and then suddenly there is this tiny red screaming thing in my arms. And I remember thinking, I am not qualified for this. I am 27 years old, and I still leave my dirty socks on the floor, and now I am responsible for a human being? But I learned. I learned how to change diapers without gagging. I learned how to make a bottle at 3 in the morning with one eye closed. I learned how to hold her when she had croup and couldn't breathe, and I was so scared I drove through 2 red lights to get her to the emergency room. She was my first baby. There is no love like the love for your first baby. It's pure panic and joy mixed together in a way that never leaves you. She grew up pretty. Not that I cared about that. I cared that she was smart. She got A's without trying. She read books under the covers with a flashlight. She wrote stories about horses and fairies. And then when she got older, she wrote stories about boys and heartbreak. I read every single one. I kept them in a shoebox in my closet. I still have that shoebox. It's in the back of my apartment closet right now. She went to college.
First one in our family. Carol cried at the door move-in. I didn't cry, but I wanted to. I drove home alone and the house felt like a library. Too quiet. I left her bedroom door open for 3 years. She met a guy named Drew in her junior year. Business major. Good family. His dad owned a chain of tire stores. He wore nice watches and talked about golf like it was a personality trait. I didn't like him at first. Something about his smile, it was too ready, too practiced. But Megan looked at him like he had hung the moon, and I wanted her to be happy more than I wanted to be right. They got married at a vineyard outside of town. The wedding cost $40,000. I paid for half of it. $20,000. Cash. Money I had saved for 15 years in a coffee can in the garage. Carol said I was being old-fashioned, putting cash in a can, but I like to see it. I like to touch it. That money was my sweat, my weekends, my missed fishing trips. I gave it to my daughter, and I was happy to do it. Drew shook my hand at the reception and said, "Thank you, Tom. I'm going to take good care of her." He looked me right in the eye when he said it. I remember the feel of his hand. Soft, manicured, not a single callus. I should have known then. They bought a house 2 years later. A split level in a development where every house looked exactly the same. I helped them with the down payment. Another $15,000. I told myself it was an investment in their future.
In my grandchildren's future. I wanted them close. I wanted to be the grandpa who shows up on Saturdays with donuts and a pocket full of lollipops. That's what I became for a while. The donut grandpa. The fix-it grandpa. The grandpa who knows how to unclog a toilet and replace a garbage disposal and patch drywall so you can't even tell there was a hole. Every weekend I was over there with my tools. Drew would stand there and watch me. Sometimes he handed me a screwdriver. Mostly he just stood there with his coffee and his phone and his soft hands. He was climbing the ladder at his dad's company, regional manager, then vice president, then something else. He bought a BMW, then his wife got a BMW. Then they traded in the first BMW for a newer BMW. The house got a new kitchen, then new bathrooms, then a deck the size of my first apartment. Where do you think that money came from, Tom? I'll tell you where it came from. It came from me, from my coffee can, from the equity in my house that I didn't know was being drained, from the credit cards I didn't know were in my name. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me back up. Kyle was different. My son. He was born in November, when the leaves were already off the trees and the world was gray and cold. He came out looking like a little old man, wrinkled and serious. He didn't cry much. He just looked around like he was judging everything. Kyle was always harder for me to reach. Megan wanted to be with me all the time. She sat on my lap while I watched football. She helped me in the garage. She handed me wrenches even when I didn't need them. Kyle wanted to be alone. He played video games for hours. He stayed in his room with the door closed. I figured it was a phase, a boy thing. I figured he would come around when he got older. He didn't. He got a scholarship to a state school, computer science. Made a bunch of money right out of college doing something with cybersecurity that I don't understand. He married a girl named Priya. Not Indian or anything like that. Priya with a P. She was from Wisconsin. Blonde hair, sharp teeth when she smiled. She never liked me. I could tell. She called me Tom from day one. Not Mr. Thompson, not even Dad. Just Tom, like I was the guy at the hardware store. They had 2 kids, a boy and a girl. They lived 3 hours away. I saw them at Thanksgiving and Christmas and sometimes Easter if the weather was good. Kyle would sit on the couch with his laptop open even while the turkey was being carved. Priya would talk about their investments and their retirement accounts and their plans to buy a vacation home in the mountains. I would sit there with my paper plate and my store-bought pumpkin pie, and I would feel like a stranger in my own son's house. Carol said I was too hard on him. She said boys are different. They show love by being independent, by not needing you. I wanted to believe that. I wanted to believe that everything was fine, and that my family loved me, and that the silence on the phone was just because everyone was busy. But there's a difference between busy and gone, and I was already gone to them. I just hadn't noticed yet. The first crack was small, so small I almost missed it. It was a Tuesday. I had retired 6 months earlier. Carol and I were finally going to do all the things we talked about for 30 years. Travel, golf, sitting on the porch with coffee, watching the sun come up.
But Carol had changed. She was on her phone all the time. Not just texting. She was on Facebook and Instagram and some app called WhatsApp that I didn't even know she had. She smiled at the screen in a way she hadn't smiled at me in years. I asked her who she was talking to. She said, "Oh, just the girls from the real estate office." She said they had a group chat. It was nothing. I let it go because I am a trusting man. I am a stupid trusting man. Then she started going out on Thursday nights. Book club, she said. But she never brought books home. She never talked about what they read. She would come back at 11:30 smelling like wine and something else, something floral, like someone else's cologne. I asked her about it. She said I was being paranoid. She said I was old and bitter and that she deserved to have a life outside of taking care of me. Those were her words. Taking care of me, like I was an invalid.
Like I hadn't worked 37 years with a bad back so she could stay home with the babies she wanted so badly. I didn't push it. I didn't push it because I was afraid of what I would find. You can live a long time in that space between knowing and not knowing. It's comfortable there. The air is warm and the lights are dim, and you can pretend everything is fine. Then my mother got sick. She was 89, living alone in the same house where I grew up, the house my father built in 1962. She fell in the kitchen trying to get a can of soup from the top shelf, broke her hip. She was on the floor for 11 hours before the mailman heard her yelling. I drove straight to the hospital. I sat with her for 3 days. I held her hand. I told her it was going to be okay. She looked at me with these watery blue eyes, and she said, "Tommy, I think it's time." "Time for what?" I asked. She said, "Time to go home." She died on a Thursday, October 17th. The leaves were falling outside the window, and the TV was playing some game show with the sound off, and she just stopped breathing. The nurse came in and checked her pulse and said, "I am so sorry." I sat there for another hour, just sitting, just holding her hand even though it was cold now. I called Carol. She didn't answer. I called Megan. She didn't answer. I called Kyle. He texted back 3 hours later. He said, "Sorry to hear that, Dad. Let me know about the funeral arrangements." Sorry to hear that. Like I told him my favorite restaurant closed. The funeral was small. My sister flew in from Florida, a few cousins, some old neighbors who still remembered my mother's chocolate chip cookies. Carol showed up in a black dress that I had never seen before. She looked good, too good. Her hair was done, her makeup was done. She smiled at the pastor like they were old friends. Megan came with Drew and the kids. The kids were on their iPads the whole time. Megan gave me a hug that lasted 3 seconds. She smelled like expensive shampoo and indifference. Drew shook my hand and said, "She's in a better place, Tom." I wanted to punch him in his soft face. The reading of the will was a week later. I sat in a lawyer's office that smelled like old paper and dust. The lawyer's name was Mr. Henderson. He had been my parents' lawyer since before I was born. He put on his reading glasses and cleared his throat and started reading. The house was mine. That was fine. I knew that. There was some savings, not much. My mother lived on Social Security and the pension from my father's job at the post office. But there was one thing I didn't expect. A life insurance policy. $50,000, payable to me and my 2 children in equal shares. $50,000. That was more money than I had ever seen at one time. My mother had been paying premiums on that policy for 40 years. She never said a word. She just wanted to leave something behind. I should have cashed it out and put it in my own account. I should have been smart, but I was grieving and I was tired and I wanted to be generous. I wanted my kids to know that their grandmother loved them, even if they couldn't be bothered to call her on her birthday. I split it 3 ways, $16,666 each. I kept the extra $2 because I'm petty like that. Megan called me the next day, not to say thank you, to ask if I could help them with something else. Drew had an opportunity to buy into a new tire store franchise. They needed $40,000. They had 20. They needed 20 more. I said, "I don't have $20,000. She said, "What about the house? You're living alone in that big house, Dad.
Mom says you're barely using the upstairs. You could take out a home equity loan. The interest rates are low. It's basically free money. I said, I'll think about it. I didn't think about it. I said no. I told her I couldn't risk the house. That house was my mother's house, my father's house, the only thing I had left that still felt like home. She said okay. She said she understood. But her voice was cold, the way a cashier's voice is cold when you tell them you don't want to sign up for the store credit card. 2 weeks later, Carol told me she wanted a divorce. I was standing in the kitchen making a sandwich. Turkey, Swiss cheese, mustard. The same sandwich I had made for 30 years.
She walked in and sat at the table and said, "Tom, we need to talk." I knew. I absolutely knew, but I asked her anyway. What about? She said she wasn't happy. She said she hadn't been happy for a long time. She said she met someone who made her feel alive, someone who listened to her, someone who appreciated her. I asked who. She said Drew's father, Richard, the tire store man, the one with the chain of stores and the nice watches and the soft hands, just like his son. I dropped the knife. It hit the tile floor and bounced under the refrigerator. I didn't pick it up. I just stood there with the bread in my hands and the turkey sliding off, and I looked at this woman who I had slept next to for 41 years, and I didn't recognize her. How long? I asked. She said 2 years, maybe 3. She lost track. 3 years. She had been sleeping with my son-in-law's father for 3 years. The Thursday night book clubs, the WhatsApp messages, the cologne I smelled on her. It was him. It was always him. I asked if Megan knew. She looked down at the table. She nodded. I asked if Drew knew. Another nod. I asked if Kyle knew. She said she didn't think so, but she wasn't sure. My daughter knew. My daughter knew her mother was cheating on me with her husband's father, and she never said a word. She sat across from me at Thanksgiving and Christmas and Easter, and she smiled and she hugged me, and she let me pay for her kids' private school tuition, and she never said a word. I left the sandwich on the counter. I walked out the front door. I got in my truck, and I drove. I didn't know where I was going. I just drove. I ended up at the cemetery where my mother was buried. I sat on the grass next to her grave, and I talked to her. I told her everything. I told her I was sorry I wasn't a better husband. I told her I was sorry I wasn't a better father. I told her I didn't know how to be alone at 65 years old, with nobody left who loved me. The grass was cold and wet. I sat there until the sun went down.
They just see a house. I see a graveyard. I moved into the apartment. 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom. A kitchen so small you can't open the oven and the refrigerator at the same time. I brought my recliner and my clothes and the shoebox of Megan's stories, and a picture of my mother on her wedding day. Everything else I sold or gave away. Kyle called me once during the divorce. He said, "Mom told me what happened." I said, "Okay." He said, "That's really messed up." I said, "Okay." He said, "Well, let me know if you need anything." I said, "Okay." He hasn't called since. That was 3 years ago. Megan called me a few times. She wanted to explain. She said she was stuck in the middle. She said she loved both of us. She said she didn't want to take sides. I asked her if she knew about the affair before I did. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said yes. She said her mother told her about it a year before I found out. She said she didn't know what to do. She said she was afraid Drew would leave her if she told me. I asked if Drew knew too. She said yes. Drew knew. Drew had known the whole time. Drew and his father had talked about it. They had laughed about it. About me. The old pipe fitter with the bad back and the coffee can full of cash. The gullible old man who fixed their toilet and watched their kids and paid for their kitchen renovation while his wife was in the other room with his son-in-law's father. I hung up the phone. I sat in my recliner. I stared at the wall. That was the moment. That was the explosion. Not the divorce. Not the house. Not even the affair. It was the realization that my own daughter had chosen her husband and her mother over me. That she had known about the betrayal and done nothing. That she had let me walk into her house and play with her children and help with homework and fix the garbage disposal while carrying the secret that her mother was destroying me. That is a kind of pain you cannot describe. It's not like a heart attack. A heart attack is sharp and fast. This is slow. This is a dull pressure that builds over months and years until you feel it in your teeth, in your bones, in the space behind your eyes that never stops aching. I stopped answering her calls after that. She left voicemails at first, then texts, then nothing. The last text I got from her was 2 years ago. It said, "Dad, I love you. I hope you're okay." I didn't respond. The financial part got worse. I didn't know it could get worse, but it did. About 6 months after the divorce was final, I got a call from a collection agency. They said I owed $27,000 on a credit card I had never opened, a Home Depot card. Then another call, a Lowe's card, then a Chase card, then a Bank of America card. Someone had opened 5 credit cards in my name. Someone who knew my social security number, my birth date, my mother's maiden name, all the answers to all the security questions. I pulled my credit report. My heart stopped.
$38,000 in debt. All of it spent at home improvement stores. All of it in the last 2 years, right around the time Drew was renovating his kitchen, his bathrooms, his deck. I called the police. They took a report. They said it would take time. They said these cases are hard to prove. They said, "Do you have any idea who might have done this?" I gave them Drew's name, Megan's name. I told them they had access to my personal information. I told them they knew my routines. They knew when I was at work. They knew where I kept my files. They knew because I had trusted them, because I had loved them, because I had treated them like family. The detective called me back 3 months later. He said there wasn't enough evidence to charge anyone. He said the credit card applications were done online from an IP address that routed through a server in another country. He said the purchases were made in person at stores, but the security footage had been overwritten. He said sorry. He said there was nothing he could do. I was stuck with the debt. $38,000, plus interest, plus late fees, plus collection costs. My credit score dropped to 412. I couldn't get a new credit card. I couldn't refinance what little I had left. I couldn't even rent a car. I had to declare bankruptcy. Chapter 7. Jerry, the tired lawyer, helped me with the paperwork. He looked sad the whole time. He said, "Tom, I'm really sorry this happened to you." I said, "Me too, Jerry."
Me too. That was 2 years ago. I live on Social Security now, $1,200 a month. My rent is $900. The rest goes to food and gas and the medication I take for my blood pressure, and the depression that sits on my chest like a bag of wet cement. I don't see my grandchildren anymore. I don't know what they look like now. The last time I saw Megan's oldest, he was 7 years old, and he had a cowlick that wouldn't stay down, and he called me Grampy in this little squeaky voice. He's probably 11 now. He probably doesn't remember me. Or worse, he remembers me the way Megan wants him to remember me, as the bad guy, the one who walked away. I think about that sometimes. Whether she tells them I abandoned them, whether she tells them I stopped loving them. I didn't stop. I just couldn't keep bleeding. There's only so much blood in a man. Eventually you run out. I go to the diner on Main Street every morning for breakfast. The same booth, the same waitress. Her name is Deb. She's 50-something, divorced, 2 kids in college. She calls me honey and fills my coffee cup before I ask. She doesn't know my whole story. Nobody knows my whole story. But she knows enough. She knows I sit alone. She knows I tick $3 on a $7 check. She knows I come back every day because I have nowhere else to go. Sometimes I think about telling Deb what happened, just letting it all out in a rush of words and coffee breath. But I don't. Because what's the point?
She has her own problems. Her own ex-husband who didn't pay child support. Her own kids who call once a week if they remember. She doesn't need my sadness on top of hers. The holidays are the hardest. Thanksgiving, Christmas, Easter.
The days when every commercial on TV shows families laughing around a table with a golden brown turkey and a fire in the fireplace. I spend those days in my apartment with the TV off and the blinds closed. I eat a frozen dinner. I drink a glass of whiskey. I go to bed at 7 o'clock. Last Christmas, my sister called me from Florida. She said, "Come down here. Get out of that apartment. Let me cook you a meal." I said, "I can't." She said, "Why?" I said, "Because I don't want to be a burden." She said, "Tom, you're not a burden. You're my brother." I said, "Okay, maybe next year." I didn't go. I couldn't face the airport, the crowds, the smiling people going home to people who love them. I couldn't watch that and then sit on my sister's couch pretending to be fine while her husband asked me when I was going to start dating again. Dating? At my age? With my credit score and my apartment and my heart full of holes? What would I even say to a woman? "Hi, I'm Tom. My wife left me for my son-in-law's father. My daughter helped her do it. My son doesn't talk to me. I'm bankrupt and broken, and I cry in my truck in the Walmart parking lot. Want to split a meatloaf special?" I went to a support group once, at the community center.
It was for people whose families had cut them off. There were 8 of us sitting in a circle on folding chairs. A woman named Elaine talked about her daughter who stopped speaking to her because she voted for the wrong candidate. A man named Bill talked about his son who emptied his bank account to pay for a wedding that never happened. A young girl named Jessica talked about her parents who kicked her out when she came out as gay. I sat there and listened. I wanted to talk. I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. I couldn't find the words. How do you say, "My family turned into strangers, and I don't know why, and I don't know what I did wrong, and I don't know how to live the rest of my life knowing that the people I loved more than anything looked at me one day and decided I wasn't worth keeping"? I never went back. I still have my tools. They're in the storage unit I rent for $40 a month. My wrenches and my saws and my levels and my hammers. Things I collected over 40 years. Things I used to build a house and raise a family and fix everything that broke. Now they sit in a dark box in a dark building on the edge of town. Sometimes I go there just to open the door and look at them. I run my hand over the handle of my favorite hammer. It's worn smooth from my grip. I think about all the things I built with that hammer. The treehouse in the backyard, the shelves in Megan's room, the ramp for my mother's wheelchair. I built things that mattered.
I built things that lasted. Except my family. I don't know if I'll ever talk to Megan again. Part of me wants to. Part of me wants to drive to her house and knock on the door and say, "I forgive you. Let's start over. I'll be the grandfather your kids deserve. I'll pretend none of it happened. I'll swallow the betrayal and the debt and the loneliness, and I'll sit at your table and eat your dry turkey and I'll smile." But I won't. Because I can't. Because every time I think about her face, I see her sitting at the kitchen table, nodding while her mother said she wasn't happy. I see her keeping the secret. I see her choosing a man with soft hands over her own father. I see her cashing the check from her grandmother's life insurance policy and then turning around and letting her husband steal my credit and my future. That's the part I can't get past. The money. It's not about the money. It's about what the money represents. They didn't just take dollars and cents. They took my security, my peace, my ability to retire with dignity. They took the last years of my life, and they spent them on granite countertops and stainless steel appliances and a deck that I will never sit on. I don't know if there's a moral to this story. I'm not going to tell you to forgive or not forgive. I'm not going to tell you to be careful who you trust. You already know that. Everyone knows that. The problem is, you don't believe it until it happens to you.
I'm 68 years old.
I have maybe 10 or 15 good years left, if the cancer or the heart attack or the stroke doesn't get me first. I'm going to spend those years in this apartment with this coffee mug and this recliner and this view of the parking lot. I'm going to eat at the diner and talk to Deb and drive to the storage unit once a month to touch my hammer. And I'm going to wait for the phone to ring. It won't. I know it won't, but I'm going to wait anyway. Because that's what fathers do. We wait. We hope. We leave the porch light on for children who left years ago and never told us where they were going. The coffee is cold now. I should get up and pour another cup. But my knees hurt, and the recliner is warm, and the sun is finally coming up over the parking lot. It's going to be a good day. I can feel it. Not a good day like the old days, but a good day like the new days. A day where I breathe in and out, and nobody hurts me, and I don't hurt anyone else. That's enough now. That has to be enough. That the man she thought would crumble was still standing. That the man she thought would sign anything was saying no. She left. She packed a bag and she left. She did not say where she was going. I did not ask. I sat in the recliner and I watched her car back out of the driveway and disappear down the street. And then I was alone. Really alone. The kind of alone that is not fixed by a phone call or a visit or a dog. The kind of alone that comes when you realize the people you loved most in the world were not who you thought they were. That was 6 months ago. A lot has happened since then. Janice filed for divorce. Mark stopped speaking to me. Lisa blocked me on social media. I have not seen Leo in 4 months. Emily came for 2 weeks. She helped me find a lawyer. A real one. Not Howard. Howard meant well, but he was a real estate lawyer, not a divorce lawyer. The new lawyer is a woman named Patricia. She is young. She is fierce. She told me Janice does not have a case for the house because I never signed anything. She told me the life insurance policy is void because I never consented. She told me Mark could face legal consequences for trying to set it up through his work without my knowledge. I told her I did not want to press charges against my son. She said that was my choice, but I should think about it. I think about it every day. I think about Mark, my boy, the one I taught to ride a bike, the one I stayed up with when he had fevers, the one I drove to college in my truck with all his boxes in the back. He looked at me that day in his living room and he saw a dollar sign. He saw a problem to be managed. He saw an obstacle between him and $750,000. That is what I became to my own son. An obstacle. I still live in the house. For now. The divorce will force the sale. Patricia says I will get half, maybe more if I fight for it. But I am tired of fighting. I am tired of lawyers and papers and signatures. I am tired of trying to prove that I matter. I sit in my recliner and I watch the oak tree grow. The leaves are turning now. Fall is coming. My favorite season. Janice used to make apple crisp. The whole house would smell like cinnamon and sugar. I would sit in this chair, and she would bring me a bowl with a scoop of vanilla ice cream on top. She would kiss my forehead and say, "I love you, Tom." And I believed her. I really believed her. Now, I sit here, and the house is quiet. The phone does not ring. Mark does not call. Leo does not draw pictures of me holding a fishing rod. Janice lives in her condo near the mall. She drives a new car. She goes to brunch. She has a new haircut. She looks younger. I saw a picture on Emily's phone. She was smiling. Like nothing happened. Like 42 years meant nothing. Like I was just a chapter she decided to skip. I get up every morning at 4:30. I make coffee. I stand at the window. I watch the sun come up. And I think about all the things I should have seen. The little signs. The small cruelties, the way Mark stopped asking for advice and started giving it, the way Janice stopped looking at me when she said, "I love you," the way Lisa stopped hugging me too long and started hugging me just long enough. They were telling me who they were. I just did not want to listen. Last week, I went to the hardware store, the new one, not the one my father went to. I bought a light bulb, just one light bulb. The woman at the checkout said, "Have a nice day, sir." I said, "Thank you." She said, "Is there anything else I can do for you?" I said, "No, that is everything." And I walked out to my truck, and I sat there for a minute. I looked at the passenger seat. Empty. No Leo, no Janice, no Mark. Just me and a light bulb, and a truck with 200,000 miles. I drove home. I changed the light bulb. It was in the hallway by the bathroom. The old one had been flickering for weeks. Janice used to say it made her feel like she was in a horror movie. I never fixed it because I liked the way she said it, the way she laughed, the way she leaned against the doorframe and watched me pretend I knew how to fix things. But she was not there anymore, so I fixed it. The new bulb was bright, too bright. I could see everything. The scuff marks on the floor, the crack in the paint, the dust on the baseboard, all the things I had not noticed because I was looking at her. I turned the light off. I went back to my recliner. I sat down, I closed my eyes, and I waited for the phone to ring. It did not. It will not. I know that now. Some silences are permanent. Some doors do not open again. Some people leave, and you spend the rest of your life trying to understand why. But there is no why. There is just what happened. And what happened is I loved them, and they used me. And now I am here. And here is a house that is too big. Here is a bed that is too cold. Here is a kitchen that smells like nothing. Here is a man who wakes up at 4:30 every morning and makes coffee and stands at the window and wonders if any of it was real. The birthdays, the Christmases, the vacations, the I love yous, were they real or were they just the price of admission? The cost of keeping him happy until he